Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello everyone, we are live. Welcome to the first ever DEX Show panel edition. I'm thinking we call these reality bites with a Y, but we'll keep that between us for now.
That's good.
Thank you, Tim. I'm glad because I knew I was sounding everyone out first time. I didn't want a negative response. Right, here, listeners, is what's normal about this show. I remain Tom McGraw, and I remain joined as ever by Tim Flower.
Hey Tom, I love a new format. I love exploring new things. So this is going to be cool.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a brand new pod within a pod. I should stress, right? This is not going to be the new format of every DEX show. This is going to be something we do every other week. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be holding up some of the biggest DEX media and marketing stories out there to the cold light of day. Think of it as an attempt to bridge the two sides of the DEX sector's brain. And with that, let's meet our bridge builders today. First of all, I want to introduce Dina Elshawaf. She's the leader of the services delivery team here at Nexthink, and so is perfectly placed to fix today's stories in the context of real-world customer and IT team experience. Dina, welcome to, I'm going to say it loud and proud now, welcome to Reality Bytes. How's it going so far? Are you regretting this yet? I hope not.
Not at all. Super excited to be here and very proud to be part of this show now.
We are very proud to have you, Dina. Thank you so much. And then we have two people firmly originating from that other side of the industry brain, the journalistic analyst side. They're leading lights on the DEX Show, DEX Hub mothership. First of all, we have DEX analyst Sam Holzman. Sam, welcome back to the DEX Show. We're thrilled to have you part of this new venture. You've been on before as a guest, of course.
Yep, happy to be back, guys. I guess I didn't cause enough trouble the first time, so I'm glad you let me back on here.
Yeah, we wanted to do a bit more damage. And then alongside yourself, we have fellow DEX Hub contributor, the truly redoubtable Megan Brake. Megan, great to have you here for the first time.
Thanks, Tom. I'm really excited to be here. See what happens.
Let's see what happens. That is the name of the game. Okay, so here's how this show works, everybody. Our DEX Hub attendees here have both brought a story with them. I think in each case it's something they've actually written about themselves, so obviously something they consider relevant and intriguing in the world of DEX right now. They're going to tell us about that story, and then Tim is going to bring Dina in to give us the view from the real world. We're going to hear it from Dina about what matters about the story, what maybe doesn't matter, as much as sometimes the industry media thinks it does, and what kind of gets lost at the coverage at a sort of high level. So with that, Sam, batter up. You're going to deliver the very first story, the very first installment of Reality Bytes. What have you got for us today?
Yeah, let's get into it. So the topic that I wanted to discuss today is one that really centers on the issue of technology, and specifically the technology that employees like to use versus the technology their employers want them to be using. And the story that we're looking at today specifically has to do with web browsers. As some of the research we've done recently into this topic has shown that Google Chrome, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, is the #1 preferred web browser for the general public and at work by a pretty considerable margin. However, most businesses continue to set other browsers, whether it's Safari or Firefox, as their default browsers. And there are obviously reasons for this. The main reason is that these browsers are less vulnerable to security risks than Google Chrome is. But the interesting question here is, what happens when employees across the board want to use a specific technology, but their company has a good reason to implement a different technology, one that they might not prefer to use?
It's a good question. Can I just ask everybody, does anybody here not use Google Chrome on their work laptop? I use Chrome.
I certainly do.
Yeah, is anybody not? No? Okay, so...
Yes,
I use Chrome, but I know my parents don't because they're in their 60s. And I know my mother is a Safari user to this day.
Safari diehard. I love it. Tim, you were about to say, or you
Yeah,
want to qualify?
I actually have not adopted Chrome. I'm still a Microsoft Edge user. I don't know. I never found a need to do anything different.
This is looking like a generational difference, perhaps.
It could be,
Yeah,
could
yeah.
be. I'm not 60 yet, but I'm getting close.
I have Internet Explorer on my phone, which my wife never fails to mock me for whenever she picks it up. I don't even know, but like it's true. Once you get stuck in a groove with a certain type of browser, very hard to
Yeah.
extricate yourself. A bit like the operating system. That's a good story, Sam. You got anything you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty much it. I was just going to add that, this is kind of something that 10 years ago we didn't really think about in terms of, you know, employees were expected to use the tools that their company provided. But now, with employees having so much more agency over their experience, it is an interesting topic, even for something like just web browsers. It's like employees want to use the tools that they like and they expect to be able to now. So I think it opens the door for more interesting conversation when it comes to the technology that companies deploy.
It is a superb story to kick off our discussion with, to kick off all of our Reality Bites discussions with, and with that, Tim, Dina, why don't you show us some real world insights here, away from the
Yeah,
marketing?
Dina, I'd be interested. Dina, I'll be interested in your input here. I've lived in the world of browsers, and maybe this is the generational thing. Ever since they were introduced in the early '90s, and what we found over the course of many years is that as enterprises develop their own internal web applications, they would write it to a specific browser. My former employer, I was there 20 years. We were tied to Internet Explorer and could not leave it because of the plugins that were created specifically for IE, and it took a lot of app development to switch. My experience in seeing people tied to alternate browsers, a lot of it came from the gaming world. People would use online gaming and they would love or really be entrenched in Firefox or some of the other browsers because it gave them a different experience and it was part of a community. So I'm curious, Dina, if what your what your opinion is it driven by marketing or is it driven by real different capabilities and experiences in the browser? What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Tim. Yes, it's mostly driven by the usage. Like you referred to a great point. Well, with the gaming aspect, right? Back in the day, starting off with Netscape and then going through IE, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and others that are there in other regions because it's also regional kind of thing. But it's not just a marketing aspect. Like I don't remember seeing an advertisement that tells me, hey, start using Google Chrome. It just kept on popping up here and there, or the need started to build up because we needed to have some shockwave players, some flash players in the background that were not supported by IE at some point. And while we're at IE or IPRE. So that is one of the reasons why it did not have a bigger impact in some aspects. On the contrary to it being one of the most used corporate browsers, Internet Explorer, like you were just mentioning earlier, the corporate side of it was building lots of applications that were tied to the specific browser, which is most likely Internet Explorers and others if in some scenarios it's needed, which recently the decommission of Internet Explorer caused some troubles in Japan because there were few companies that were tying down their old applications that needed to be there for some security aspects, so on and so on, to Internet Explorer. And now they are in demand of, oh, okay, we need to accelerate making sure that we have a correct browser, a correct secured posture, and so on. But it is mostly, if you're asking on the usage itself, it's mostly driven by the good UI and how we need to use the browser. There's more than 1.85 billion websites out there, so the use for browsers are not going to ever end.
And part of the problem too, and at least in the corporate world, is that the operating system requires you to set a default browser. So when you click a link, it launches that default browser. And we were constantly struggling with employees downloading a different browser, setting it as a default, and then their corporate applications don't work anymore because they're in the wrong browser, and we had no way to tell until they call the help desk and say, hey, my application doesn't work. So managing multiple browsers has been a thorn in the side of IT for decades, ever since their origination.
Agree. It's been a real struggle, not just because this is your default browser, and for you to use that other website or this other application, you need to download that other browser or extension. And the main issue with other browsers rather than the Chrome one, I'll just pick on Chrome being 60%, having 60% of the market. Yet it's not one of the corporate browsers because of the higher number of vulnerabilities, and also because of the constant need for it to be up to date. However, the older applications that they have, the other browsers, which is going to be Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, and so on, they have a higher tendency of taking a longer time to actually get an update, which again makes them vulnerable. So it's the security posture needs to be equalized, but unless you have the correct tools to actually monitor how the deployment process is in place, the update and compliance process is in place in your environment, IT is going to constantly struggle with more than 50 versions, and this is not a hypothetical number, unfortunately, per browser, per customer or per enterprise. So these are actual struggles in the IT world, and the constant battle is between balancing what would the user want and would be more comfortable with and fulfills the needs of their job, and what we offer them as a corporate into, okay, this is the most compliant or the default browser or the corporate browser that we need you to use.
I love it. Fantastic start to the show, everyone. Fantastic kickoff to the entire concept, in fact, thanks to a brilliant analysis there from Dina and Tim. Megan, what is the second story of today's inaugural episode that you have for us?
Our second story is a little, maybe a little headier, a little more up in the air.
I like it. It should be.
Than just browsers, but I promise it's also still grounded in real-world IT application.
They'll be the judge of that,
so.
Megan. They'll be the judge. That's the whole point of the show.
I
so
hope so. Okay. We'll see. So the second story that I'm bringing is about the flow state and IT's capabilities to influence a flow state at work. So if you're not familiar with the idea of a flow state, it's an idea that's been around for a long time, but the term was coined in the 20th century by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I practiced that a couple times before I got on.
You are brave, Megan. Launching into that one, my goodness.
Practice that one. But yeah, so it's basically this idea that we can have a state of comprehensive concentration in a given task. So, if those of us that are lucky, we've experienced this either at work or during our hobbies or whatever, where you get completely absorbed in a task, time flies by, you kind of feel elated, you feel really satisfied with the work that you're doing. So it's obviously kind of an ideal state, really, for work, and nobody can feel that way all the time, but ideally you'd be able to feel that way at times at work. So can IT have an influence on this? Can IT set us up as employees of businesses, as workers, to have the tools we need and the environment we need so that we can enter this flow state? And one of the key things for that is that you can't have too many distractions, which is hard in this new super hyper digital world we all work in, where distractions are pretty much constant. Your Teams notifications, your Slack notifications are coming up all the time, your phone is buzzing, you're working at home, your kids are asking for you. We're surrounded by distractions all the time. So in what way can IT kind of influence this flow state? And there's a bunch of different ways that, at least from my perspective, as somebody who writes about IT but does not work in IT, that IT can do this. But in case you're wondering, why should we even really care about this? Is this really something IT needs to worry about? Isn't this more of an HR thing? Disengaged employees can cost businesses it can cost the U.S. Economy up to $605 billion per year, according to a poll from Gallup that I found. So this is a real thing. If employees aren't engaged, if they're leaving their jobs, if they're just distracted all the time and feeling unhappy at work, they're going to leave the company. It's going to cost the company money. And IT can play a role in this. So some of the ways that I found through my research that IT could play a role in helping facilitate the flow state for people at work They can optimize our digital collaboration tools and make sure that those are working really flawlessly for us, so that when we do need to get information from our coworkers, so that we can get, the information that we need so we can do our work, that we can get it effortlessly. They can provide a personalized IT. I know IT personas are a thing, but you can base your IT persona on an employee's work style or groups of work styles, so that employees get the tools that they need. And there's a bunch of different ways that IT can kind of facilitate flow and make sure that employees have the digital environment that they need to get their work done and to feel engaged at work and to improve business outcomes. So that's my story. That's my marketing spin on why flow state matters to IT. So I'm curious to hear what the actual experts in the room think about this.
I have so many questions. My first realization is that, we've been blaming the economy on the supply chain. It turns out it's just a result of my ADD. $600 billion. That's huge. I'm real curious to explore this one.
Yeah, so it's the amount of disruptions and distractions that we get every day, just being on one device. So just take it one step further from a very realistic perspective. On average, everybody's having at least two devices: the laptop they're working on or the device they're working on during work, and their phone. You can add to that their watch. You can add to that the exterior surrounding environment, kids if you're working at home, construction, phone ringing, and all of those other things. So other than the fact that if you're just focused on your screen, you'll be getting all of the notifications and things that Megan was referring to. The amount of time that it takes for one very focused person in flow of in the state of mind of flow to get back to work is 20 minutes on an average, I remember. So to get back, this is like 1/3 of the hour. So to get back to just one small thing that you were doing, you'll have to take longer time than you were actually working on the task, maybe. So to minimize this amount of distraction, putting your phone on flight mode or focus time, now we have this focus word being utilized in so many apps in so many ways. As now on your Outlook, you can have focus time. So it kind of automatically blocks a time for you, and then you're able to get a DND, don't disturb sign on your Teams and on your incoming alerts, so you can actually get the work that you need to do done. And you have the same feature in the phones enabled also in the recent updates of iPhones. Now you have a focus profile. You just click on it, disables everything, gives you the notifications, but doesn't pop them up on your screen. So you'll refer to using those other tools. You'll refer to using sharing when you're sharing screen or when you're doing some presentation and so on. You need to have that automatically, like a DND or a don't disturb, so you wouldn't be getting disruptions by email notifications or pop-ups or other team members chatting with you on Teams while you're presenting to other people.
So Dina, do you think that IT would be better served by consciously and outwardly talking about flow and focus, or is it more like Fight Club? The first rule is you don't talk about it, you just do it.
Both, actually, like a mix of both would work in a very nice and friendly Fight Clubby kind of way. Yeah, you don't talk
Friendly
about
Fight
it.
Club.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. So I'm pro the idea of, okay. So there's two aspects. So using the help of technology, yes, kind of put it in. Do not really talk about it. Get those focus apps and focus time and laser focused tasks within your task, but at the same time educating people about how to be more in flow, how to be more conscious, how to be more alert to not being so alerted. Funny enough, it is very important now, where again we can still use technology to educate people about that, as the usage of your phone, usage of your computer and all of that, the statistics that you keep on getting once every week, at least if you turn that on, it's very useful. It could be a good indicative to you, as in, oh, okay, so I'm being distracted more by social media apps, or I'm being distracted more by music or Amazon or any of the applications that you're using to do some things on your phone during work or during your other hours. Having this piece of analysis, having this piece of information is very insightful. So it actually helps you make better decisions on how you want to do your work and how you want to be more focused. So you can eliminate the distractions.
And if IT is going to be an advisor, is there a difference between flow that occurs from a remote worker versus in the office? And does that mean IT needs to have more awareness of where employees are, their persona, their work style, in order to advise them properly? Or do you think flow just happens based on where you're at?
I would definitely agree with the point that Megan referred to earlier with the persona. So having the persona of users in the IT environment is very crucial at this point in time, because a few years back, before COVID, everybody was working at the office, so the kind of how everybody was doing work, or the profile, was kind of the same. Now it's a little bit different. You can still get work done from home, from the office, from in between when you're moving yourself from the office to home, or the other way around, on transportations and such. So being aware of the service that we provide to people from the IT perspective, and the quality of the service, and how we can provide it to them wherever they are, is very critical, because you don't need to just go to the mountains to disconnect. You can still do that in your home. You can still do that in your office if you need to get into that state of flow. You don't have to have all of the meditational aspects around you. It's not really applicable and practical all the time. So IT can, and actually would, keep the people's personas in mind and people's way of work in mind, because not just the profile that matters, but also how you do things and what you use. So if I'm using the wrong browser, then I should be advised to not use the browser and use the application, the desktop application, or the other way around if it's much better for me. So those kind of insights that IT would have would definitely enhance the experience of how everybody is getting into the flow.
Speaking of flow states, ladies and gentlemen, I think we reached one today. I think we nailed our first episode. Huge thanks to Megan and Sam for bringing such great stories. Huge thanks to Dina for grounding them so succinctly and so well. And huge thanks to Tim and our super producer Catherine Shea for making this whole thing happen and work. If you did enjoy it, please do let us know about it, because if you're lucky, you may get one of these every other week, alternating with Tim and I's standard interview format. Listeners who enjoyed it can find Sam and Megan's superb work over on the DEX Show, DEX Hub mothership. Thanks to everyone for joining us today, and a huge thanks for coming on, everybody on the panel.
Thank you so much for having us.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.